Tucker Carlson covered the shootings of two demonstrators who were shot and killed by 17-year-old Kyle Rittenhouse, the exact way that you would expect him to, because Tucker Carlson is gonna Tucker Carlson, and you're about to see a little bit of that in this next video.
We do know why it all happened, though. Kenosha has devolved into anarchy because the authorities in charge of the city abandoned it. People in charge, from the governor of Wisconsin on down, refused to enforce the law. They stood back and they watched Kenosha burn. So we're really surprised that looting and arson accelerated to murder. How shocked are we that 17-year-olds with rifles decided they had to maintain order when no one else would?
You know, it's really fascinating, Ben, that he has that take when you consider the fact that you had vigilantism is not legal, right? They were working with a vigilante group, emboldening them, telling them on tape, we have video proving it, telling them how much they appreciate the militia. And the shooter here, Kyle Rittenhouse, was underage, 17 years old, but he was open carrying a rifle during this protest. So if you're gonna make an argument about how the police stood back and didn't do anything, they specifically didn't do anything about the vigilantes who were specifically there looking to cause trouble.
Yeah. Tucker Carlson has one job, and that is to provide cover for Nazis, fascists, and white supremacists in this country. He does it in the Brooks Brothers suit. He does it with the Ivy League degree. He does it with the clean-cut look. But at the end of the day, he is empowering a level of right-wing bigotry that is palatable. He is, I think, second only to Donald Trump, probably the most responsible for creating this environment that this young kid, this young man, 17-year-old man, felt emboldened enough to go out there. In addition to the support that he got from the police that were on the ground, the tape, the videos that you were talking about, the militiamen were admiring the trucks, the tanks. There were tanks on the ground, but Tucker Carlson fails to mention that. He leaves that out so that he can create a scenario where everyone thinks there was chaos and lawlessness.
So we're gonna go through all the various laws that Rittenhouse broke that night. But before we do so, I want to share a video featuring Kenosha Police Chief Daniel Miskinnis, basically arguing that the people at fault here were the protesters who were there past curfew. Let's watch.
Everybody involved was out after the curfew. I'm not gonna make a great deal of that, but the point is the curfew's in place to protect. Had persons not been out involved in violation of that, perhaps the situation that unfolded would not have happened. So the last night, a 17-year-old individual from Antioch, Illinois, was involved in the use of firearms to resolve whatever conflict was in place.
Okay, so that 17-year-old crossed state lines with an illegal weapon because he's underage. He crossed his state lines twice with an illegal weapon. So let's say that, let's mention that. Let's also mention the fact that he was also out there past curfew with the armed militia members who were given bottles of water and all this complimentary treatment by the cops who were allegedly there to try to keep people safe. So that's an issue as well. And Ben, I wanna go through the timeline of what happened based on the video and the evidence that we have so far. I know that the Daily Caller has been reporting, their version of events that night. For all of the reporters out there who take the Daily Caller seriously, but simultaneously go after Tucker Carlson, please understand that Tucker Carlson founded the Daily Caller, and they're a bunch of right wingers who have an agenda, and I don't trust their timeline or their version of events at all, okay? But there are some more details that I've looked into myself, that I've fact checked myself, that I'm gonna get into right now, just to give you guys the details of that timeline. Before we do so though, Ben, I wanna open this up to you.
Yeah, the thing I need to make sure people understand is that justice is not blind in this country so long as it is being carried out by people who have an explicit political bias that they go by. They have an ideology, and you can see that they're making every effort that they possibly can to give this kid cover, despite the fact that he was the one that broke the laws.
Exactly. So here's what we know about the timeline so far, and this could change depending on more details, maybe more video evidence that emerges. So as the New York Times reports, about 15 minutes before the first shooting, police officers drive past Rittenhouse and other armed civilians who claim to be protecting a car dealership and offer water out of appreciation. Rittenhouse walks up to a police vehicle carrying his rifle, his illegal rifle, and talks with the officers. Notice that the cops didn't ask any questions about that weapon, didn't do anything about that weapon, even though he looks like a teenager, right? It's obvious that maybe you should ask a question about whether or not he's legally obtaining that weapon. He eventually leaves the dealership and is barred by police from returning. 6 minutes later, footage shows Rittenhouse being chased by a unknown group of people into the parking lot of another dealership several blocks away. We don't know right now what led to those individuals chasing him down. We don't know what he did to lead to that. We don't know what kind of altercation ensued. But what we do know is after the fact, the first victim was shot in the head. Okay, while Rittenhouse was being pursued by the group, an unknown gunman fires in the air, though it's unclear why. Rittenhouse turns toward the sound of gunfire as another pursuer lunges toward him from the same direction. Rittenhouse then fires 4 times and appears to shoot the man in the head. So that was the first shooting. Now, the man that he shot in the head was not armed. So we're talking about one person, a 17-year-old with a weapon, across his chest. That's the weapon that he used to shoot and kill 2 people that night. The person who was shot in the head did not have a weapon, okay? Let me continue. Rittenhouse seemed to make a phone call and then flees the scene. Several people chase him. These are people who are trying to disarm him, shouting, "That's the shooter." As Rittenhouse is running, he trips and falls on the ground. He fires 4 shots as people rush toward him. One person appears to be hit in the chest and falls to the ground. Another, who is carrying a handgun, is hit in the arm and runs away. All right, so that's what we know so far. And anyone who's saying, "Oh no, he's a patriot. He was there to protect property." Well, that's interesting because in Wisconsin, you're not allowed to use lethal force to protect property. That's actually a law in the state of Wisconsin. What are the firearm laws? Well, if a person is not otherwise prohibited from possessing a firearm, it is legal to carry any legal firearm openly in Wisconsin. But Kyle Rittenhouse, a 17-year-old militia member who has been arrested and is facing a homicide charge in the matter, was not old enough to legally carry an assault-style rifle he had, according to statutes, which say anyone under 18 who goes armed with a deadly weapon is guilty of a Class A misdemeanor. So he broke that law, he broke the curfew law, he crossed state lines with an illegal weapon. He is not some innocent person who was trying to be a patriot that night. He's someone who took the lives of 2 individuals who were protesting the shooting of Jacob Blake in Kenosha. So those are the details we have right now. And anyone who's trying to paint him as some sort of angel is being dishonest. And anyone who's trusting the Daily Caller with their breakdown of events should really question what the Daily Caller's agenda is.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.